Hello and welcome to the Beacon Strategies podcast with your host, Chip Kispert. I'm RJ Malik, producer of this podcast. Chip, how about you introduce your guest and tell us about what you're going to be talking about on this podcast?
I'm excited to have Mike Overdorf, the CEO of Sycamore, with us today. Mike, welcome.
Thanks, Chip. How are you?
Doing fabulous. It's a gorgeous Friday afternoon here in Denver where it's going to be a lovely 102. And I got a tea time at 11:40. So, it's going to be fun.
Have fun with that. As you know, I'm from Buffalo, and it's a beautiful 75 degrees right now. So
You have perfect weather. So, seriously, I'm super excited to have you join us for the 1% Better podcast. I think we have a lot to talk about today, and I look forward to getting right to it. So, one of the things I want to kind of dive into, Mike, is, you and I were chatting earlier this week, and we talked about, how wealth firms are looking at their tech and we talked a little bit about that tech fatigue. So I'm super curious to get your perspective on what you're seeing out there and how wealth firms are viewing, the abundance of technology as we watch kind of the bloom of fintech.
yeah, we're seeing that across all our clients. Their tech stacks are getting larger and larger and larger. They also are saddled with a lot of legacy, core pieces like their compensation or their compliance. And they're really struggling with how you get all these pieces talking to each other, because that's the other big thing we see is data. Because you have all these different pieces spread out across the organization, they all have their own little data silos. And what we get from our clients a lot is you can't get the comp talking to the surveillance, and that really stresses them, and that's always seems to be a topic of conversation. The other piece is, and it goes back to data, is reporting. It seems like that they're always trying to gather data from all over the place to get these reports in place, and that is tiring, especially when there's like a FINRA auditor in house or something like that. Those seem to be the two big stresses, fatigues, if you will, that we hear from our clients.
Yeah, it's interesting. We recently had our RIA roundtable, and around the group, there was a common theme: simplification.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things about your platform is you do try to simplify things for advisors and wealth firms by bringing it all to one platform.
Yeah, we start with, as 15 years ago, we started as a compensation platform, but you got to bring in a lot of data, process commissions correctly. And just over the years, we just started bringing in more and more and more. And next thing you know, we're more of a data platform than anything else that all these, these functions hang off of, whether it's compensation or surveillance or supervision. But over the years, we became more and more a data platform than anything else.
So as you look at that kind of proliferation of data, right, you really talk about, becoming that data platform, right? How do you see, and listen, I know you guys are on the Salesforce chassis,
Mm-hmm.
And we see the Matthew McConaughey advertisements talking about data being the new oil. How do you see, firms more effectively getting their arms around their data? Because this has been a traditional problem over the years. Every time we walk into on a consulting engagement, data comes up within the first 20 minutes of quality versus junk data. Where do you see kind of this proliferation? Because you got Salesforce, you got Snowflake, you got all these different applications, tool sets trying to get their arms around data. How does it get better for the advisors?
It's a good question. I mean, I think whenever I go to your round tables, you ask everyone, say, what keeps you up at night? And every single CTO says, well, it's data. It's data silos. That's been for years now. So there's a lot of people out there trying to solve that problem. But I think the problem started is because going back to the legacy issue, these firms started buying, point solutions. They bought a comp system, they bought a surveillance system, they all have their own databases. What we do, what we recommend is really you got to start with data first, and like I said, and then add these point solutions to that data. So we always start with, well, let's get all your data from the clearing firm, from DST, Dazzle, DTCC, Schwab, you name it, all these different data sources. Let's get that in, let's get it normalized, and let's get into a single platform that's architected to hold that data wisely. And then from there, once that's step one for us. And from there, then we turn on the compensation engine, then we turn on the supervision, then we turn on the surveillance. But you really do need to start with data. Now that goes to all these broker dealers out there or RIAs, they've already got a problem. So when we go in, we basically start from scratch. So we got to rebuild this foundation. We need to centralize your data, and that's usually how we attack it. Now, how our competitors are doing it, I wouldn't know, but it's probably something similar.
I wanted to get your perspective on that because you just touched on it. They have data here, they have data there. All these different silos that don't talk to one another,
right?
And it's super important to get them talking to one another. And as you see, kind of firms that are out there that you all plug into with your integrations, right? How are those firms working with you to streamline the process and to ensure data integrity, hygiene, etc.?
Well, we bring in data from all the different data sources, the clearing firms of the world, and we have a close relationship with all of them in DST and Dazzle, and staying up to date with their file formats and things like that. But really, what I think you're asking is the other third party programs out there. The big ones that we integrate with that on a day-to-day basis are the forms engines, the Quicks and the Laser apps of the world, and they're doing wonders as well. I mean, they're integrating electronic signature now, and they're working on straight through processing and things like that. But really, those are the two big integration partners that we have. Now, there's others, that we'll build, custom. I mean, every one of our clients is, we're constantly doing single sign-on. They say, hey, I have these five programs. I need SSO for that. So we have one guy that works for us. All he does is SSO, day after day after day. So it's they're all want to talk to somebody or another. So we're constantly doing that. But the real heavy duty moving of data back and forth, that's mostly with the forms engines out there.
Got it. As an organization, right, and as you're looking kind of 3 to 5 years out, where do you see tech going for advisors? Where do you see the evolution of the platform to be able to support the advisor, to be able to support the investor customer, and then, the ability to support what I'll call the hub, and that may be, a broker dealer, or that may be an RIA that has, kind of that hub and spoke model. Where do you see kind of tech evolving to for advisors?
I'm going to start my answer with a little bit of a story. So when I first got out of school, and the first jobs I first got out of school, I was hired as an internet product manager. It was 1995. And back then, as you know, there was no internet really. It was like Netscape and a couple, stupid little websites out there. But it was my job to go around. It was an insurance software company at the time, to go around and educate all these, these CEOs of these huge insurance companies what the internet was. And back then, I was like out there saying what it's going to be, not what it is today, but what it's going to be. Today, it's just kind of, barbed wire and Band-Aids, but it's going to be able to do this and this and this. And they're like, oh, that's great. And then at the same time, in the late 90s, you had the dot-com was going crazy, and we eventually had the bust. But I lived through all that, and I remember it. And I think we're going through the same thing right now with AI. And that's my long wind up to my answer is I think AI is definitely the future. But just like back in the 90s, it's got plenty of potential, but there's not a lot there yet. It will be taking over software, and that's why everybody's investing all this much money into it, because there were smart guys back in the 90s dumping a ton of money in the internet as well. But when the old analogy, you got to crawl, then walk, then run. I think AI is still in the crib, right? It's not even crawling yet. But boy, does it have a ton of potential. We're looking at it, as you mentioned. We're 100% native to Salesforce. Salesforce has its own AI tools. We were at a conference there a couple weeks ago. Some really cool stuff coming soon. And just give you an example, Salesforce has got this great report writer that went out and spent the billions of dollars in Tableau. But I could see sometime in the very near future, you could speak into the system, say, hey, I need to compare ticket charges or management fees from last year to this year. Can you just, throw together a report for me to do that? Boom, boom, it's done. Now you can do that today, but you need to go in there and you need to write the report. And so it's all there. Just like back in 1996, you could pick up and call your travel agent to book airline tickets, right? You could do it, but now you can just do it from your phone and on the internet. So I think AI is coming. It's the future. It's one of the reasons why you have to have good data, because you need good data to power AI. It just doesn't make this stuff up. It needs to go back and look at good, normalized, well-architected, related data in order to do some of the queries that you're going to want to do. But yeah, our focus for the next 2-3 years is going to be AI and see how it's going to be deployed. What we're going to do with it, I don't know yet, but I do know that's the future.
So if we look at that, right, and you mentioned going to the conferences and doing, where, if you were to make a working man's bet, right, on the 3 pieces of the puzzle, where wealth firms would gain traction and add value, what would those be?
Add value to, my clients, the RIAs and the broker dealers, their client is the advisor, right? So where my clients would add value to their clients, to the advisors, absolutely, faster response time, more accurate responses. A lot of nonsense that you have to go through now will be automatically filtered out. Cleaner, more accurate, faster data. Everything much more forms in good order, even if there are forms by then, who knows? That's where it's going to be. Like I said, you can do everything today. AI just makes it faster, more intuitive, easier than you can do it today.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of these note-taking apps and the like, whether that's Zox, whether it's Jump, being able to smooth that process, be able to record, creating a little bit of compliance heartburn, but they're working through that. But it's interesting because what you just told me is that it's going to be a smoother investor experience from a reporting standpoint as well as a meeting prep perspective. I'm hearing that.
Yep.
I'm hearing that it's going to be smoother and faster and easier to do business reporting, which I think a lot of these folks or a lot of these RIAs, they do the best they can possibly do, but they don't have the ability to pool those numbers and get that structure. And then finally, in talking about operational efficiencies, I think you just talked about automating the account opening process and making that smoother.
Yeah, that's one of the areas we're going to look at first, actually, is the account opening process.
Yeah, that account opening process is one that, and again, I go back to the roundtables we hosted this spring. It's one that everybody's been working on for years and years, and it's still tough. It's still tough.
Well, what we find is, because we have a lot of clients, they all do it differently. There's no out of the box account opening process. I mean, they all want their own flavor on it. They all have their own, suitability information they need to track. So these are all custom workflows.
Right.
That need to be built. There's no cookie cutter.
One other question I have is, and we chatted a little bit about this, is, we have this proliferation of fintech, wealth tech, compliance tech, whatever you want to call it. There are also a lot of legacy systems that are hanging out there.
There sure are.
And so I'd love to get your perspective on, because he's getting off a legacy system, if that's the desire of a firm, can be a challenge. How do you see firms kind of evolving to the next generation tech stack to support their businesses, and being able to deal with these legacy systems that they've been on for 20, 25 years?
Yeah, the reason there's so many there are in our industry for whatever reason. I'll tell you what I think it is in a second here, but there's a ton of legacy out there, more so than any other industry, and I think the real reason is it's painful to move off, of, especially like a comp engine. It's like we get this all the time. It's like, yeah, we're on this comp engine. The reporting's horrible, but we just don't have the energy to move. So they're very sticky. So a lot of these legacy apps are very sticky. The clients know that they could be on something better. They just don't want to go through the effort. And it is a challenge. I mean, that is, well, in our sales, I talk to my sales guys and they say, yeah, they just, status quo is the hardest thing we fight against. It really is. It's not, a competitor or anything like that. It's just, they just don't want to make the move. And they're right. It is. It's hard to do it. It's an effort, it's a job. You need top down, you need support from senior management, and you need, people dedicated to the project. But once they go through that process, they are extremely happy. Next thing you know, you got real-time reporting and flexibility that just wasn't there before. So it's a commitment, but that's the reason there is so much legacy out there.
Got it. Yeah, and as we see it, it's interesting because we can go in and do consulting and give this beautiful plan. About 50% of the time, we'll see firms act on it, and then 50% of the time, even if it's better, faster, cheaper, experience, cost, the whole 9 yards, as you said, they just don't have the heart to make that change. They don't have the grit, maybe it is, I don't know, but they kind of get stuck, and I think as we look at competitive call outs and differentiation, certainly being able to have a tech stack that can balance the knee-to-knee with self-service is what's expected in the marketplace today. And to some extent, I think our industry is behind when it comes to fintech.
Usually the advisors drive it. I mean, they listen to their clients, and if the advisor says, come on, guys, we need to upgrade our tech stack here a little bit. That's usually when I get the phone call.
Yep.
So it's no matter what we say, our sales guys say, until they get a demand from the advisor in some way or the other, that's usually when we get the sale.
Mike, before we kind of look at wrapping this up, I wanted to chat with you talk a little bit about our friend Mary Blackburn, who we lost in December. One of the things that in concert with you, we've worked to create a partner challenge within our roundtables that are provide some charity work. But I'd love for you to share a few of your thoughts on Mary. And she was such a dear friend of mine, and I know she was super tight with you and your team, and I'd love to hear a little bit about your thoughts.
Yeah, she was the best. I mean, Mary and I were friends for a long time. We knew each other going back, several lives, for different companies we worked together with. When I decided to start up Sycamore Company, 2008, she was my first phone call about that. So we started on the company on Thursday. I hired her on Friday, and she's been with me ever since. Right? So she was awesome. She ran sales and marketing for us, and she was the most laid back salesperson in the world. I mean, there was no pressure coming from Mary at all, which we liked. It's kind of my philosophy as well. But what she developed friendships and trust. The one thing I heard back about Mary was, man, they just trusted her. I mean, she just developed that relationship, which is key. A lot of sales guys can't do that. They really can't. But she went out there and just developed friendships and trust, and she was just a joy to work with. She was a hell of a salesperson. She was just a great person all around.
Yeah, it's in terms of my loss and our ecosystem, that was a big loss. And when you called me, I was pretty shook up.
Yeah, it was shocking. Like I told you, I mean, it was completely and totally unexpected. She had just closed the deal that day. It was a Wednesday, and she was happy as can be, and we were laughing about it and joking. And then I get a call the next day that she had passed away in the middle of the night. It was just complete shock.
Yeah. So I know you and I, we're doing a little bit of, we're keeping her memory alive, and it's been amazing too how many people have reached out to me, asking, and there a lot of people still don't know. I know some of the work that you and I are looking at potentially doing in 26 may be able to even make more of an impact. So I look forward to those conversations, and figuring out how we potentially could do, some more charitable donation work in her name.
Excellent. I agree.
So, Mike, I want to thank you for coming on board the Beacon 1% Better podcast. It's been a great conversation, and I'm super grateful for your time.
Thanks, Chip. Anytime.
Okay, Chip, before you guys go, let's have some contact information. Let's start with Mike first.
Oh, sure. Mike Overdorf, Sycamore Company. Mike.Overdorf at sycamorecompany.com.
All right, Chip, how about your contact info?
And you can reach me at beaconstrategiesllc.com or through my LinkedIn, Chip Kispert.
Okay, thank you. And most importantly, thank you for listening to the Beacon Strategies podcast. We ask you to share this podcast, rate it, and leave a review because this actually helps others find the show. Again, thank you for listening. And for Chip Kispert and everyone at Beacon Strategies, I'm RJ Malik, and we look forward to you joining us for the next podcast.